it's Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder here with a tradition on this channel to open up our pre-release kit from the latest set and build a deck for League, not for pre-release before I get people getting angry with me, acting like I'm going to use this in a pre-release. What we do at our store is we do a thing called League, which you can hold on to your pre-release if you play in a pre-release event here at our store, or you can buy a fresh one if you'd rather do that, to enter into our league, which will run from the duration of this set until the next set comes out. So usually it lasts about 6 weeks, unless we want to do one for like Modern Horizons 2, then a little bit less. And you start with the pre-release kit, and then you get to add a pack every week to your deck or to your pool, and your deck gets progressively better and better each week. You can also add a pack every time you lose. So what I like about leagues is it keeps the playing field very, very fair. The better players are going to have less cards to work with, and the players that lose a lot are going to have a bigger card pool. So it makes a very fun experience. It balances things out, and it actually makes it so that losing doesn't feel so bad, because it's like, oh, I lost this game, but I have cards to work with now going forward for my deck. And then typically we do a little tournament at the end of the season and give out promos and prizes and whatnot just for playing. So we do it for here for free, basically. Like if you play the pre-release, it's a free entry. If you don't play the pre-release, then you just buy a pre-release kit. You get to keep all the cards and whatnot, and it's a really, really fun experience. So I highly encourage you, if you have a local game store that you would like to start this at, just ask your store owners to do this. If not, you can actually join my Patreon, and I can actually sell you pre-release kits, or you can do it with bundles. You can do it with a lot of other things. And this is a very, very fun thing at the kitchen table level to just play with your friends and progressively, have a game night and play this as time goes on. This is my favorite way to play Magic the Gathering. I've whined and complained and whatnot on this channel about how much I can't stand Standard and Pioneer. I think the power level is just through the roof for Magic the Gathering. I feel like most decks are autopilots at this point. And there's a lot of rock, paper, scissoring. Like, I typically, there's always going to be a rock, paper, scissors format in Constructed. Control beats mid-range beats aggro beats control, or, mixed combo in that mix there. However, there are certain formats that are worse than others, and I really feel like this one's very lopsided. Like right now in Standard, you can build a deck to beat Blue-White Control, or you can build a deck to beat Mono-Red. You can't build a deck that beats both very consistently. And we do have a little bit of like Lizard Spock, or whatever you want to call with it, because mid-range, like the Esper mid-range does pretty decent versus Control and Aggro, and same thing with the Blue-Black Tempo deck does decent against those two, but then they also have decks that can beat them. And so, I don't know, maybe the meta's a little bit better than I'm giving it credit for Standard at the moment. Pioneer, kind of the same thing. But the biggest problem, again, I have is power level. I feel like the cards are just so auto-includes in every deck, and the cards just play themselves. There's a lot less tit for tatting, which I love about Magic the Gathering. A lot of interacting and trying to bluff and trying to use your removal and your curve efficiently. And now I think that a lot of the decks out of Pioneer and Standard, they just like, oh, I'm going to play this card this turn. I mean, look at Boros Convoke, because there are really a lot of decisions to be made in that, or even Mono Red Aggro, or even Blue-White Control. One of my pet peeves with Magic the Gathering is Control players always think they're savants. They always think they're the most genius players ever for playing Control, and I think one of the lowest skill decks to actually pilot a lot of the times is decks that are typically Control, because the decks are just built to okay, I just need to survive, and so I'm just going to play out my cards, and then, draw big, and you actually, I think controls are a lot more forgiving for bad plays than something like an aggro deck is, and it's kind of funny that I think a lot of people have the opposite sort of mentality about Magic the Gathering, and how we have control players around here that just think they think they're big brains with everything because they play their control decks. Anyway, that's another discussion or rant for another day. We were talking about the pre-release kit, and everyone wants to see me quit fidgeting and actually open this up. What I love about this, though, is like I was going into, is I love limited. I love drafting. I love sealed. However, I feel that most events you don't get enough experience for, like, it's not enough bang for your buck. You buy into a draft, you play 3 games, you're over and done with, you never get to play those cards again. So maybe you drafted like an awesome combo, and unfortunately you got mana screwed on round number 1, round number 2 you didn't see your combo, round number 3 your opponent got mana screwed. you didn't get to play it. It kind of sucks. It's a feel bad experience. And same thing with sealed. Sealed's like, oh man, I needed I have these really good cards, but unfortunately my curve didn't work for that color combination, because in sealed you're basically just building your curve. That's the best way to do sealed, is finding the cards that the color that actually curves out the best, stick with that pool of that color, and then try to build around it at that point. That's what, in my opinion, the best way to build sealed is. However, if it's league, eventually you're going to be able to find cards to start to tune towards a deck that actually can play a lot of the cool combos you're going to be experiencing. And you get to experience the full mechanics of the set. You get the full flavor of a set. And I just love leagues. I can't talk about how much I enjoy playing this kind of mixed limited experience, and as I've stated in the past, these decks actually become quite good by the end of it. And again, it's really, really fun, because now with rotation in standard every 3 years, basically, there are going to be a lot less cards that are going to be good enough for standard, let alone pioneer or modern, with this longer rotation. And so, I mean, there are cards that have plagued standard, that, like Kameno, like with this mono red aggro, they have just pushed out a bunch of other strategies that it's just not worth it to actually play those type of cards. And so there's so many fun cards that get released out of these sets that are just too weak for standard. And again, this is where they have a place to shine, is in the league. So again, Kevin, shut up and open up these packs. That's all people care about. They don't want to hear you fidgeting and rambling about your stupid league. All right, so we open up the black dice with the yellow. So let's see what our promo is. And now I think we can remove my ugly face here, and then just get on to the good stuff here. Hopefully my lighting is okay for the cards. Let me adjust this a little bit, see if we can get some more lighting in here. And alrighty, so first of all, we have Hell to Pay. So again, this set, I don't know. I don't like the theme. I think I'm too much of a boomer. I really don't want to play dress-up cowboys that are gaudy and over the top. It's not my cup of tea. I think that I'm not excited to play squirrels next. It's just, I mean, it's become too childish. A lot of times I'm really, really itching for dark fantasy. But this is kind of a dark fantasy type card. We got Hell to Pay for a X and red. However, what I was saying with this, I don't really like the theme of this set, but a lot of the mechanics are actually kind of cool. Plot seems fun. There are some other, like the Outlaws. Hell to Pay deals X damage to target creature. Create a number of tapped treasure tokens equal to the amount of excess damage. Did we have a card like this that was printed in one of the Baldur's Gates, if I remember correctly? This is kind of cool because you can actually spend excess mana to ramp, and then it does have to do with target creature. You can't hit like a player, but I mean, you got to think of this as like a ramp spell. So on turn number 3, just do like 2 damage to the face, create 2 treasure tokens, and then the next turn you can actually cast your 6-drop. So don't underestimate this card. Like treasure tokens, I think Wizards always underestimates treasure tokens when they print them. They don't understand how good these treasure tokens actually are, and it's kind of sad. Let me get some more lighting here. 1 second, so we can actually see these cards. Hopefully that's a little better. Maybe not. There we go. A little bit better. So, yeah, Hell to Pay is definitely a very, very interesting card to build around based upon your curve, and if nothing else, it's just a decent little removal spell that is going to get the job done. So that's always a good one for a promo. You want to see things that are actually worthwhile. And again, for limited, for sealed, I think it's still smart to always look at the curve. And Hell to Pay is just perfect because it enables curves, and also it can go in any slot of the curve. Like, it's going to be played. You can play it on turn number 2 to get rid of a 1-drop, and it's going to scale very well. All right, so we have the Geyser Drake, the Geyser Drake. As long as it's your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less. We have the Bighorn, which is a 3/4. Whenever it attacks while saddled, you create a white sheep token, and the saddle is a 2. So Vigilance is pretty good and limited. So we got a nice little. We'll put them in colors here, off camera. We have the Mine Raider. 3/2 Trampler for 3 mana, and enters the battlefield. If you control their outlaw, you create a treasure token. So again, not too shabby. We got a Giant Beaver with Vigilance, so it looks like they're printing a lot of Vigilance cards here. And attacks while saddled, you put a +1 counter on the creature that saddled it, on a creature that saddled it. A 4/4/4, so not bad on curve. We have the Conduit Pylons. Enters the battlefield Surveil, and then it has got the filtering. So that's actually pretty good for man, that's actually a pretty cool card. I actually like it. And it's a desert, so hopefully deserts are going to be viable in this deck. We have the Peerless Rope Master. And enters the battlefield, return up to one target tapped creature to its owner's hand. A 4/4 does not have flash, though, so kind of expensive for this ability. We have the Alchemist for 2 mana for a trample 3/2. Pretty good. And when it becomes plotted, target creature gets +3/+2 and gains trample into turn. So you can actually plot it for 2. So if you have another 2, or you have a 3-drop with haste or something, that's pretty good. But it's kind of awkward. Like, typically I think you do want to go 3. A 3/2 on turn 2 is not bad. It's very aggressive, but also, I guess you can plot it, and then like turn 4 would probably be the right turn to play it. So you plot it back in, give something +3/+2, attack with your 3-drop, and it's pretty decent there. So far again we're heavy into red green, and we have the Cactus Sure Shot, a reach 4/4 for 4 mana with Ward 2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, other creatures you control with power 4 or greater gain trample and haste. So there's a little synergy there with the Alchemist, because you can plot later on to then give something. You could actually give itself +3/+2. So then it would give haste, and it'd get triple trample at that point. But there's a little bit of a synergy right there with those 2 cards, and it's nice on curve too. So 4-drop into 5-drop, it can get the job done. Probably swinging for lethal that turn, hopefully. We have the Servant of the Stinger with a Death Touch. Deals combat damage to a player if you committed a crime this turn. You may sacrifice it. If you do, search your library for a card and put it into your hand, then shuffle. So Demonic Tutor if you've been able to deal combat damage and commit a crime in a turn. So not too shabby. I'm not quite sure how easy it is to commit a crime. Well, it requires a lot of targeting of opponent's stuff. We have the Step Between Worlds with 5 mana. For each player may shuffle their hand to the grave or in their library. Each player who does draws 7 cards. You can actually plot this for a turn where you can empty your hand, so you're able to hopefully draw back up your cards. But a lot of times these mirror type cards that wheel in limited are very, very tough for you to get the full benefit. You're usually using more resources than your opponent. You're paying the mana cost and a card to draw back up, and they just get a free wheel at that point. And we have the Akul, the Unrepentant. For 4 mana, you get a 5/5 flying trample. With the ability of sacrificing 3 other creatures, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So again, it's going to work good with a bunch of creature tokens if we're able to create them. And a 5/5 flying trample, though, for 4 mana, that is just massive. That's a huge bomb, just if we're able to get this color combination. And so far, yeah, we're a little light on both, but it's first back. We have a Repulse, which returns a creature to its owner's hand and draws a card. I believe that does commit a crime when you actually target something. This is a really good card at instant speed. Repulse was a staple clear back in, what did they print this in? It was clear back in like the, not Urza's. Was this back in like, yeah, was it? It was clear back in, I know Legacy was when it was printed. I remember playing this clear back in the day. And we have the Explosive Derailment, which deals 4 damage to target creature for 3 mana, because you always have to add the 2, or you can destroy an artifact with the Spree ability. So 4 damage for 3 mana instant speed, very, very good. We have 2 removal spells in red. If I were just to judge this by the pack number 1, we definitely, this is kind of cool to add the green, is red is the powerful card. We have 2 of the multicolors with red in here. And so pack number 1, of course, we have blue, it's okay. The rare is kind of weird, but we made up with having multiple rares in this pack, which is very, very common for these play boosters. We have the Hard Bristle Bandit, which is going to help us fix, and whenever you commit a crime, you can untap it. So it can possibly add more than 1 mana per turn, and that is nice little fixing. We have the Vault Plunderer, enters the battlefield, target player draws a card and loses a life, so hopefully yourself there. It's a good card limited to replace itself, and it's also another way for targeting to commit crimes too if you absolutely need to. We have this Silver Deputy, which is enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card or a desert and put it on top, so it doesn't go in your hand, but top is okay when you're really trying to fix your Jund, and we're definitely going Jund so far with these packs. So it's a pretty good little card there for fixing. I've not been impressed, of course, my white. Only 2 white cards with the Sterling Supplier. Just puts a counter on a creature you control. We have another Explosive Derailment. We have a Rodeo Pyromancer, which whenever you cast your first spell each turn, you add 2. So it can help you kind of ramp and spend stuff. And Hell to Pay also fixes. That's what's so cool with this sucker. Man, I'm loving our red so far. We have the Blood Hustler. Whenever you can make a crime, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then you can target opponent, lose a life, and gain a life. So really good crime enabler with the Blood Hustler to be able to then drain as well as get some crimes committed. We have the Wrangler of the Damned. At the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, you create a 2/2 white spirit creature token with flying. It also has flash. And this also helps with plotting because you can work this with plot to actually really utilize, and then instant speed cards. So Repulse and Wrangler of the Damned is a nice little synergy with the white and the blue. We have the Demonic Ruckus. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 in Menace and Trample. And when it's put in the graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card. It's also got the plot 1, so you can actually plot it turn 1. And then on turn number 2, you can actually throw this on something. So it's very, very aggressive. It needs to be put in the graveyard for you to draw that card, though. We have, oh, yeah, look at the Jund we are going into. We got another bomb in the form of the Gitrog, Ravenous Tide. So one of my favorite cards from this set so far is Trample Haste. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice a creature that saddled it. If you do, draw cards, then put up to X land cards from your hand on the battlefield tapped, where X is the sacrifice creature's power. So it allows you to put a lot of land cards from your hand on the battlefield. 6/5. The thing about I like about this card, it's very just aggressive with the Trample Haste, 6/5 for 5 mana. The Saddling's very easy to do. Sacrificing is kind of like in standard. There's some cool synergies with cards that do want to die. I'm thinking about the 1-drop that creates a treasure. Like you can really ramp with this dude at that point, and you still draw cards too. That's what's cool about the Gitrog. So I'm thinking this one is gonna. I play a Golgari deck. I need to show it. I keep wanting to showcase the deck. I need to find time to actually record some games and whatnot. Made Mythic with it last season with a Golgari fight deck with good old Phyrexian Obliterator. So anyway, we have another Mythic, so a double Mythic pack with the Open Path Journey. When there's a battlefield, search your library for up to 5 land cards that have different names, exile them, and then shuffle. And in the beginning of your end step, choose a card at random, exiled, and put on the battlefield tapped. So this is going to ramp 5 eventually. So we're definitely fixing really well into Jund. It's going to be very tough to get me out of Jund. We have the Indomitable Creativity. You can destroy X target artifacts on our creatures, and for each permanent destroy this way, its controller reveals cards from the top of the library until they reveal an artifact or creature, and then exile those on those players. Then they put them on the battlefield. I actually think this is limited playable, especially with like Hell to Pay, and there are a lot of other. There are some cards. Didn't some of these want to die? I mean, there's some things that come out early that then you can get value off of. Even this like Hard Bristle Bandit, you can get value off of. So man, we are definitely finding some good ways to like ramp and do stuff. I think it's actually playable. Of course, you want some bigger bombs to hit into at that point, but creating the treasure tokens seems pretty decent as targets for this Indomitable Creativity. So I think it is definitely playable. We have a Raucous Entertainer, a 2/2, and you put a +1 counter on each creature you control that enters the battlefield this turn. So there's some cool little plotting things you can do. It's a 2/2 bear, which is fine. And we just get a forest, and we actually get a mercenary token this time. So far so good. There's a lot of things. And again, in Sealed, this would be kind of fun, but you can already start to see in League how well this pool is going to, long term, how it's going to find a lot of synergies. Like, man, the Ackle the Unrepentant, if we get any big creatures, being able to sack creatures to put things directly into play. And even with the Gitrog with drawing cards and either casting those outright, we have a lot of ways to create a lot of pressure. We have a Slickshot Vault Buster, a 1/4, and if it's committed crown, it gets +2/+0. Vigilance as well. Lots of vigilance in this set. There's been one in white, green, and blue. We have the Inventive Wingsmith at the beginning of your end step. If you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, and the Wingsmith doesn't have flying counter, put a flying counter on it. Okay. So it's easy to get a flying counter. We got that Prickly Pear, so it's another good Indomitable Creativity target because it puts in a 1/1 mercenary token for 3 mana for 2 creatures, a 1/1 and a 2/2 mercenary, or a 2/2 and a 1/1 mercenary. We got the Snakeskin Veil. Usually is pretty decent to put in limited because putting a +1 counter on things is just fine by itself. So yeah, great card. We have a Corrupted Conviction. More ways to sacrifice mercenaries and draw some cards. Pretty decent there. We have a Djinn of Fool's Fall. You can plot it to get out earlier. And we also have a Patient Naturalist. Enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards and put a land into your hand. Also, if you can't, you create a treasure token. That actually might even be better than putting land in play, again, with some of our synergies here. We have the Honest Rutstein. Enters the battlefield to return a creature card from your grave to your hand for just a 3/2. Great little synergy even with like Corrupted Conviction. And then creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So again, this is going to be ramping out things. And now look at all the green pool that we've got. We've got so many green. Green and black looks super good. Green and red still seems super good. We got fixing that actually seems pretty decent here. We have the Bounding Felidar, 4/7 and attacks while saddled, put a +1 counter on each other creature you control, and you gain 1 life for each of those creatures. So, huge board stabilizer there. We have the Mobile Homestead. It has haste as long as you control a mount, and whenever it attacks, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it on the battlefield tapped. And crew too. So again, this is another way that we can actually kind of have a pseudo fixing. It's easy to crew, comes out. Yeah, it's actually pretty decent. And then it also has haste. You have a mount too, but I don't. Yeah, we actually did have some mounts like the giant beaver and stuff. But now we have another on-color rare with the Roxanne. Whenever Roxanne enters the battlefield or attacks, you create a tapped colorless artifact named Meteorite. When Meteorite enters the battlefield, it does 2 damage to any target and add 1 mana of any color. So we have tons of fixing in this deck. And whenever you tap an artifact token for mana, add 1 mana of any type that artifact token produce. So this actually, treasure tokens do tap when they sacrifice. So it does work with those. We got the good old Savage Smash, which allows a creature to get +2/+2 and fight another creature. So there's a nice little removal spell. Yeah, I think we are in Jund. Is it justifiable to splash black or fully go? I mean, we're splashing 1 color for sure. It looks like, to me, red-green so far. We saw 3 packs, and it feels like a complete deck already. So the power level with these play boosters is definitely high. Call of Manor seemed weird because it felt like you had to use every card in your deck because it was so multicolored. It was very, very rough. We have the Cactarantula. So this spell costs 1 less for each desert, and it's a 6/5 with reach. And when it becomes a target of a spell or ability, you get to draw a card. Not a bad little... 5 or 4 drop even in this deck. There's lots of ways to reduce its cost, and so I don't know. It's really teasing me which direction to go. Like based on this, I think we'd be splashing black. There are some cool little black cards over here. Not very deep though. Even Occult the Unrepentant, I still like evaluating this card now. Looking at it, this is like worth it just for 6 mana, or so you got to think that maybe by the time you get the double black, you'd be at like 6 lands. It's still worth it with this sucker for a 5/5 trampler with flying. So pretty decent there. Lots of multicolored cards. They've all been, except for like what, 1? We just have the one Azorius that's off. Yeah. All the rest of them have been in the Jund colors. Been pretty lucky with these packs and still got a few packs to go. We can Reach for the Sky, which gives a creature +2/+2 and reach. And when it's put in the grave from the battlefield, draw a card. So we're seeing a lot more of these type of cards because Wizards has figured these have been such a liability for auras that they should at least replace themselves. Like equipment stick around, auras should probably replace themselves. So we have the Consuming Ashes, which is 4 mana to exile creature. If add mana value 3 or less, you get a Surveil. So instant speed 4, like very splashable even. Even the double black's kind of weird. So, I mean, at this point now, it's like even red looks like it might be splashable because it's the easiest one on the... then Domino Creativity, maybe not, but I don't know which one's gonna be splash, but Jund so far looks really good. So flash creature enters the battlefield tapped, kind of weak for the pool so far. We have Steer Clear, which does 2 damage. If a mount does 4 damage to an attacking or blocking creature. We have the Highway Robbery. You may discard a card or sacrifice land. If you do, you draw 2 cards. So this one's kind of cool because you can actually sacrifice excess lands, and you can also discard a card. To draw 2 cards. And you can actually set it up on another turn if you really want to, like late game. You play it on turn number 2 because you have nothing better, but you don't really have something you want to discard. And then when you get down later on with excess lands you don't want, then you can cast it. So kind of neat stuff there. We have a Holy Cow. Flash flying, and when it enters battlefield, you gain 2 life and you scry all for 3 mana. And we finally get another multicolor card that's not on at least color scheme with our Jund. Enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red mercenary, and whenever you activate an ability that targets a creature or player, copy that ability. So even your mercenaries allow you to copy stuff. And in all honesty, it wouldn't be too hard to splash with our even going to 4 colors, but I don't think you would at this point. We are so deep. Like I think we could build a deck with the packs we have already. We have a Nurturing Pixie. Enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target non-fairy, non-land permanent you control to owner's hand. If you did, you put up +1 counter, so it can be a 2/2 flying for 1 mana. But of course, you'd have to have something out. So we have the Emergent Haunting. Being advantage step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand at this turn, the Emergent Haunting isn't a creature. It becomes a 3/3 spirit. So it just becomes it, and then it's done, and then it can surveil. So you just have to go a turn without casting something. Works great with instants. So again, with the repulse, turn 2 emergent haunting, turn 3 pass turn, on your turn 3 bounce something. This became a 3/3. Pretty decent 3/3 flyer. Like, pretty good card here. This is gonna be a fun set to draft. I can already tell. We have the Luxurious Locomotive. And it attacks, create a treasure token for each creature that crewed it, but you can only crew it once. Kind of expensive for a 6/5, no evasion. So, yeah. Kind of weird. I'm not sold on this card. We have the Combo Profiting Mayor. Unfortunately, we are breaking our streak with having uncolored stuff. Whenever one more token enters the battlefield under your control, for each of them, create a tapped token that's a copy, and triggers only once per turn. And when one more token enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Jeez, that is a strong little card for 3 mana. That is a super strong little card. So you got to think like Wedding Announcement and a lot of other cards that work with this sucker, and you're going to get a lot of value. It's going to stabilize this 2/4 body for 3 mana. This is a pretty sweet card. I wonder if it has a like Orzhov mid range. Seems pretty good with even the planeswalkers that even like a Wandering Emperor and a few other the planeswalkers that just create tokens right now. Not too shabby. So we have the Heartless Pillage. Target opponent discards 2 cards, but if you attack this turn, you create a treasure token, which is actually very relevant in this deck. And this is another way to get the crimes going with the Heartless Pillage. We have a Possum. Whenever it attacks while saddled, it gets +1/+2 until end of turn, and then you may return any number of creatures that saddled it to their owner's hand. So it's a great way if you have ETB effects to do that. And unfortunately, we got a Krios, however you say that, I'm going to try, and Desert Land, which isn't too shabby. Works with our little desert dude, but I mean, even white. Now I'm looking at this like white black. So what's the color combination? Abzan. Abzan looks super strong right now in this little mix too. But I don't know. I think Jund is still superior here. We have the Failed Fording. Return an online permanent to its owner's hand if you control a desert or surveil. We have an Outlaw Medic with lifelink, and then when it dies, draw a card. We have a Irascible Wolverine. Enters the battlefield, exile the top card of your library until the end of the next turn. You play that card for just 3 mana. You can even plot it too, so you have all the mana on the next one. I think that's probably the way to do it. Plot it on turn number 3, and then turn number 4, you can get some card draw. Well, I mean, you're going to play it either way. Yeah, you're going to be able to play stuff. We have the Drover Grizzly. When Drover Grizzly attacks while saddled, creatures you control gain trample. Lots of ways to gain some trample. We have the Rooftop Assassin with flying lifelink for 4 mana flash too. Enters the battlefield, destroy target creature and opponent control has dealt damage. So we have the Boneyard Desecrator. You can sacrifice a creature to put a +1 counter, and if it was an outlaw that was sacrificed, you create a treasure token. Pretty decent there to be able to get some treasures, and I don't know, kind of weird card with what we're doing. Another Holy Cow. Holy cow. We have the Vile Smasher. This on colors again. Whenever another outlaw enters the battlefield under your control, deals 1 damage to target opponent. So great way to get the committing crimes, as well as a 3/2 for 2 mana, which other outlaws entering. Pretty decent. We have the Bee Spawn Outcaster. If you control creature power for greater, you draw a card. You can plot it to set it up for a future turn when you probably do have a 4 or greater. And we have This Town Ain't Big Enough for the both of us. This spell costs 3 less to cast if it targets a permanent you control. Return up to 2 target non-land permanent owner's hand. So 5 mana for 2 of theirs. Instant speed too. Typically, I've seen some of these in the past. They've been sorcery. Instant speed's huge. Even for 5 mana to return 2 target non-land permanents, that's huge. That's 2 blockers. That's 2 attackers. 2 attackers, and then they leave 2 blockers behind. You bounce them. I mean, this is a very, very versatile card. We have the Key to the Vault, which in Limited I actually think is a very strong card. Whenever a quick creature deals combat damage to a player, look at that many cards from the top of your library. You may exile a non-land card from among them and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and you may cast them with cast the exile card without paying its mana cost. Now, I'm already seeing some really good synergies, so I can get all fancy here. So a little bit of a pause break here with what I'm thinking. So first of all, white just seems okay with blue. There's some synergies in here. White actually seems better with the token generation of black, but there's not a lot of token generation at this point. But a huge synergy I'm seeing is green-blue. Like a green-blue, you get some undercost creatures out, or plot them in to hold up your mana. You're able to cast your plotted cards, hold up mana for things like equipping, even like that, and then you start getting a huge advantage off of just bouncing and getting in for like 4/2s for 3 mana, that type of stuff. I think that's actually a pretty decent little strategy in the pool that I've got. We have the Terminal Agony, which just destroys a creature in madness. I'm not sure how well. Discarding cards, there's one. We have the discarding card with the instant speed or sorcery speed by for 2 mana. It has the Terminal Agony. But I mean, 3 mana sorcery destroy creatures fine. And it's on our colors, which is good. And we have Kellen the Kid in foil, flying lifelink for 3/3. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, you may cast a permanent spell with equal or lesser mana value from your hand without paying its mana cost. If you don't, you may put a land from your hand on the battlefield. So this sucker is just full of value. Kind of awkward, though. I mean, white's fine, and white has some good tempo cards with plot. I don't think we got a lot of plot to work with. That's where Kellen definitely wants to, do is plot. And we have a Jagged Barrens, which is on our little Jund color combination. So a lot of stuff to work with here. So, again, I still think that I would like to be fancy, and Jund would be the right route to go. And I don't know exactly the splashing colors. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, green might be the splash color. And just go red and black. And then you splash with a couple green cards that are worthwhile. I don't know. It's all over the place here. We have to make our final decision on what we do. So we have the Mourner's Surprise. We can return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard or hand, and you get to create a 1/1 mercenary creature token. So that's pretty good. So 2 mana, you get a 1/1, and also return a card. We have the Jailbreak Scheme to make something unblockable and put a +1 counter, or target artifact or creature. Target artifact or creature owner puts it on top or bottom of the library. So you actually target you target the creature, and then owner gets to choose to put on top or bottom. Okay, I don't know why that was so hard for me to read how that one worked. We have this Steer Clear. We've seen that one, which is 2 damage or 4 damage based on amount. The Quick Draw. Target creature gains +1/+1. Gains first strike, and creatures target opponent control lose first strike and double strike until end of turn. And we have the Mirage Mesa. Just enters the battlefield tap and add a color. That's perfect. We don't really have any 1-drops, so it's a great 1-drop desert to throw down. We have the Gigapede. Enters the battlefield, target creature and opponent control is -2/-2, and it's flash for 6 mana. We have the Badlands Revival. Return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and return up to 1 target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So that's actually pretty strong. Excuse me. And then we have the Lively Dirge. You can search your library for a card and put it in your graveyard, then shuffle. Or you can return up to 2 target creature cards with total mana value 4 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So for 4 mana, you get your 4 value from your graveyard. For 1 more, you can search your library and put it into your graveyard. So that ended up costing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for 5 mana, you can get 4 value anywhere, or you can go get like a 4-drop. And we had some decent little 4-drop. Yeah, we can go get the Ackle the Repentant. That's pretty good with the Lively Dirge. For 5 mana, we can go get our broken 4-drop. Pretty sweet. Okay, so we have the Bicklick Wrench. So again, add 1 mana of any color to spend for only mounts, though. And you can look at the top card library. We did have a lot of mounts in green. So kind of neat with this ranch. I'm not sure if it's worthwhile. And we have the Map the Frontiers, just library for up to 2 basic lands and deserts, and put them on the battlefield tap. So another, wow. Commander? See, Commander is no longer a singleton format when you can basically, every set is printing one of these to go get 2 basic lands and whatever the mechanic of the set is. Gates, deserts, what else have they done? They've done so many things on this sucker. So, of course, man, green is super strong. We have a very complete deck. We got the High Noon, which can deal 5 damage to any target by sacking it, and then each player can only cast 1 spell per turn. So it kind of shuts the plot down. We got a Grindstone. Target player mills 2 cards. If they share their color process, you repeat it. So this card can actually be pretty decent and limited, because it can mill out an opponent pretty quickly. And we actually have it Buried in the Garden, which, when Buried in the Garden enters the battlefield, exile non-land permanent until Buried in the Garden leaves the battlefield, and then you get double mana or an additional mana by tapping it. And we also have the Eroded Canyon. So, again, we have a neat little Jund list. Yeah, I don't think that I'd like to go the blue. The blue just seems like really shallow. Doesn't really have a lot of creatures, and the creatures in blue are quite bad. The Flash 4/4, for example. White just seems very, very, like, the curve in white's terrible. Like, you have some of the higher end stuff. Like, the Holy Cows are kind of neat. Gaining some life, having a 2/2 flyer. But I mean, I'd like to have like get some bigger finishers. But as I said, like the curve is pretty neat in this deck. We have a lot of ways to get back. Like this is the thing about this deck too. I don't know how much exiling the graveyard there is in this format, but things like Badlands Revival, and then we also have like the Lively Dirge, and the other one that also return a card back from your graveyard to the battlefield is basically now they have to deal with our bombs, which aren't. I mean, the curve of these bombs aren't the greatest. Like 5-drops, but I mean they're still strong. These are all very strong cards. Like Roxanne is massive, 2 damage when it comes in for a 4/3 for 5 mana, and then ability to, I mean, yeah, actually. Not as good as I first analyzing it, but that's pretty good. 5 mana for two damage to anything comes in, and then being able to ramp into stuff. The problem is like we have like a lot of ways to ramp, like with a Map the Frontier, and we have a lot of stuff here to create treasure tokens. It's just kind of weird that there's not really a huge payoff for our like no mana dumps. This is what this deck would want, is some way to actually utilize the mana after that. So it is kind of awkward there. But what I do like about this is like they have to deal with these bombs multiple times with some of our recursion here. And all of these multicolored Jund cards are strong. So I think this deck's pretty duh at the moment. So going forward though, like I could definitely see some cool synergy. Like you can stay in Jund for quite some time. And with the fixing, I think it's very, very viable. But this has got some good setup to go, either into Gruul or into Golgari down the road. I definitely think Jund would be the right way. We got removal spells in black, removal spells in black-red, removal spell in a green-red, and also a lot of removal spells in red. We have plenty. I mean, I think, so Savage Smashing, we have 2 of the explosive derailments. We have the red-black removal spell. We have the 4-mana black removal spell. Like, this deck is complete. Like, I couldn't be more than happy than sitting down at like a pre-release with this pool, because I think that it's like the worst thing is when you get a pool that doesn't have, like, the curve is great on this sucker. Like we're curving out at 5, and again this I call Unrepentant is kind of like a 5-drop. So even this Map the Frontier, like I don't even know if this sucker is even needed in this. If we just want to naturally, we have some fixing lands that just do it better. We have a couple of the green cards. I think you probably would, just to make sure that you hit like all of your so the Map of the Frontier is going to find you. I don't think that anything requires double green in this one. So I mean, you basically just go get like either double red or black and a red, or even the desert. Some of the, like, you go get this Festering Gulch for sure. And we also got the other one too, the Jagged Barren. So I think the Map of the Frontier, of course, is just, yeah, this is just better just to go grab these suckers. And at that point, even like this 6-drop of this Cactarantula. So you can also see, like, yeah, we're going Map the Frontier, grabbing 2 more lands. We'll have 7 anyway, but this will cost 4, and you'll still have some mana left over. Like, probably not terrible little synergy there, but I don't know if we even need a 6/5 at that point, because definitely worth it just to fix, make sure we cast all of our stuff. And like all of these suckers, I believe they're all undervalued for their mana cost. Like you could justify this as a 7-drop. You could justify the Gitrog Rider as a 6-drop easily. This one could easily be a 6-drop, and you can still justify their mana cost, because they're going to be affecting the board at that point quite substantially. So yeah, this is pretty good with the removal spells and all the other stuff that works in here. So it's kind of your traditional, we're going to play a Jund mid-range type strategy. Lots of early removal, lots of ways to fix, lots of ways to get back our bombs, and very, very solid pool. So I'll have to let you know how well this one works in League at first, and maybe in the past I said I'll showcase my League as time goes on and whatnot, what I added, but I've not been the best consistency of actually doing that on these YouTube videos. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Been a little bit long for this overview of the pre-release pack, but it's been Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.